Pastry Time, who's standing by with Dignitas' support.
Thank you very much. I'm here with Dick Special, a grueling 2-game series, which is usually not what we say, but congratulations, you have clinched the playoffs along with Dignitas. How are you feeling off the series, though? I know you thought they maybe weren't the best games from the team.
Oh god, those are really bad games from myself, and just our team play was just not very good this whole series, this whole week in general. It's been very frustrating for us, and fortunately, we are in playoffs. I mean, going from 10th place to playoffs is a pretty nice thing overall. I mean, we weren't gonna be too sad when we lost the series because we came back from such a bad deficit, and the fact that we aren't in relegations was like, oh, thank God for us.
And of course, it did seem like you guys picked it up throughout the series as well. Some of the late game decision making and the team fighting was really looking good for Dignitas. Were you guys confident as the games went on longer that, okay, we can actually turn these games around? Or what were the comms like kind of throughout what were 2 very long games?
I think our savior in our series, just in general, is our team fight somehow. I don't know what exactly is about it, but we just perform extremely well. We call targets, we were able to perform well. And I mean, in these games, we were behind in gold, I think in both games, and we managed to come back in these grueling team fights, and we just slug it out, and we just somehow take the win.
All right, so it's maybe not the cleanest look from Dignitas just yet, but you guys have been looking better and better, especially in the back half of the season. You've now clinched playoffs, so what do you think the team's chances are? How are you feeling kind of moving into playoffs, which are in, I think, 2 weeks to start it off?
Man, honestly, yesterday we were just so sad from having lost to Cloud9, and right now we're just relieved. We don't even know what's going on tomorrow. I can't even tell you what's going on in 2 weeks. We're just relieved to be at the spot, but at the same time, we have to work super hard and just get even better. And our mid game is just suffering. Today our laning was not good. It's just overall we have issues that we need to fix, but I feel like they're fixable, and I'm not exactly confident for playoffs, but I will be in 2 weeks.
And I'm going to say in 2 weeks, how far can Dignitas take it?
Well, in 2 weeks, you should hopefully win that series. And then, I mean, I want to go to Vancouver. That'd be super dope. And I'm confident in my teammates. I mean, you see us having improved so much in such a short time. Imagine in 2 weeks, how far can we go in that? Maybe, hopefully do pretty well.
Well, congratulations on the win, and see you in 2 weeks. Of course, Special and Team Dignitas will make playoffs. We're going to throw it back to the analyst desk to break down the series.
Thank you, Pastry. Welcome to the playoffs, Team Dignitas, and welcome to the analyst desk.
Yeah,
thank you. One of those 2 things is a bigger deal than the other. I'm talking about you joining the analyst desk.
We had to kick Kobe off. We had to kick Kobe off because he was super dope.
Super dope. Yeah, and Kobe's gone because he guessed it right. I don't know how that works.
That's the reward. You get to get.
Yeah, you get to leave.
What? It's solidarity.
That makes it sound like I'm not a pleasant person to be around.
When you have an inferior analyst here, you need to have the solidarity.
All right, well, let's talk about this, though, because a big 2-0 for Dignitas in order to secure that slot moving towards playoffs. Of course, as we heard from Special, not too happy with their play as a whole. Thought it was a messy series, and that, more so they feel lucky to get the win there and qualify for playoffs.
It was kind of the reverse of their series Friday, where they had a lot of leads in that series and then kind of threw them away. Here, this time, they were falling behind generally around the mid-game and had to win some kind of crazy team fights to be able to come back into the game. So I understand if that's your final week in the regular season, none of those wins were that kind of nice, even gold graph that most people are hoping for.
And for Immortals, on the flip side, there is still a slight possibility that they can squeak into the playoffs. It will require that FlyQuest loses in 0-2 fashion to Team Liquid. That's taking place over on NA LCS 1 right now, so if you're curious about how that's going, go check it out. But it's a real bummer, right? Because it's out of your hands now. So for Immortals to have started in that fashion where they were in the lead in both of these games, had winning opportunities, and weren't able to close out, that's going to sting a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is. And honestly, that's partly the composition that they drafted. I think that, Rengar and even the Vladimir, I feel, are a lot harder to participate in these super late game team fights when you hit 6 items. Rengar, you jump in, you essentially just have to run right away. Kha'Zix can just spam out Ws, you can kind of poke, and Vladimir has trouble closing the gap and even finishing people off when support has Redemption, Locket, etc.
And to be fair, I do not mind that Immortals does play for this kind of more early game.
Totally fine.
You're right, because they're a team that we talk about always wanting to snowball and get a lot of stuff going on early on. They just failed to close out with some of their leads, like the Taliyah game, not a ton of Taliyah play, and then gets outperformed by the Cassiopeia. Once again, the Vladimir went off, but then at one of the couple critical fights, just things went wrong, and the Vladimir couldn't participate the way he wanted to.
Right, we can't deny the incredible game put together by Pobelter in this one, but I do want to take a look at a few plays here, some of which point at what you're talking about. Aggressive moves by Immortals when maybe it's unnecessary. 17 minutes into the game, following a pick onto Dardoch, they're still going to contest for this Infernal Drake. Dignitas Dignitas is going to come out with the lead.
Right, it seems like they have a chance to contest it because the team is not super grouped up on the side of Dignitas. Immortals able to force away the backline of Dignitas there, but then the arrow doesn't connect. They're able to turn on the Pobelter, get him down very low.
Double snipe.
And then you get the sick double snipe out of Laud
He
there.
did that twice in this game, by the way.
Yeah, he had a great game. And then you just trap in the pit down a man, and it's too hard to win a fight when you don't instantly kill a backline member on the enemy team.
And I think one of the things that can happen when you do get ahead is you get so overconfident, like in the strength of your team, that even when you're in a bad situation, teams sometimes take these poor fights. I mean, you're down a jungler, you're not necessarily respecting the fact of how much power is off the map with that, and you think, hey, you know, Pobelter still really strong, maybe we can 4v5. But if you throw that away, your lead can go so fast.
Similar situation presents itself 35 minutes into the game. This is another one fight from Dignitas and really the turning point of the game. Great engage here on the side of Sunday, but from a positioning standpoint, the fact that Cody Sun is even available to be hit here coming up is probably a bit of a misplay.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, right? It's point and click Nautilus ult. He does get hit by that. It's a follow-up on the hook, but when he's already out of the fight, you know, what is Rengar going to get done here, right? It's just kind of strafing around in the back, not really able to participate in these kind of fights. Then he's easily ulted up. They don't really bail out as early as they should. I think as soon as Cody Sun gets picked there, that's a lost fight. The Rengar can't really participate. You don't have enough damage from just the Vladimir to kill, and you need to bail out.
I think that's a great point what you said earlier about just getting overconfident because they think, okay, wait, Pobelter's not on the fight yet. He has all his stuff up. He'll come in and kind of clean this fight up. He whiffs his ultimate, and then it's one of the few fights that Pobelter actually didn't play well, and that you can see is just
Look at the 80 damage.
Yeah, you get to see how much better Laud had of a game
Right,
over.
the comparison in 80 damage, also that gold graph there, marked by that 35-minute point there. Yeah, completely drove off a cliff. We saw that the Elder Dragon was picked. No, never where you want to take the squad. But you go from that one fight to an Elder Dragon, from there to a Baron. Baron finally unlocks your ability to take down turrets.
Yeah.
At that point, Immortals had 10 turrets under their belt. Dignitas didn't have any. It was that one fight that actually allowed them to start taking their first turrets.
And I think that's why being able to play back when a fight doesn't start exactly perfectly when you're ahead is fine because the enemy team can't come flying back in the game if you just limit it to our 80 carry die, let's back off.
Exactly.
And I understand teams don't want to play too safe, but when you have that big of a lead, instead they take the fight, they lose that, they lose Elder, they lose Baron, they lose another fight, and then all of a sudden, Dignitas is right back in the game.
It's always just a fine line. You need to push your advantages, but you need to accept the situations that are not going to work, even when you're at an advantage, and be willing to, hey, okay, great, we wanted to finish the game here, it didn't work out, back off. You don't have to just commit everything to what is essentially already
And it's a
done
characteristic of Immortals that we talked about after game one, right? The Dardoch plays in the bot lane where, someone gets away with 25 health, and then you just really want to secure that kill. No, let it go, accept that it didn't work out, and just reset for another play. Player of the game going to Laud this time around. You pointed out the damage discrepancies between the ADCs. That alone is enough to give it to him. And while Pobelter was powering up throughout that whole game, you know, Laud was kind of flying under the radar, matching the scoreline the entire time, keeping them in there when it comes to the damage perspective.
And I think that Ezreal is one of the best champions in the game to be ahead on, to be that strong member, because you don't have to play as safe. You have this arcane shift, you can go aggressive, you can keep yourself safe, and you can win duels. It's like he's so flexible that when you have a lot of gold on them and they're playing well, you can take over a game.
Now, we don't know what seed Dignitas is going to be in the playoffs just yet. That's still up to or left to be decided. But now that we know they've qualified, what's your confidence level with this squad moving towards the playoff, knowing they have a little bit more time with a week in between, you know, to fix a few things. But starting out in deficits in both games doesn't necessarily give me a ton of confidence coming into best-of-5 series against other top teams.
I think it will be tough because they're going to be playing most likely CLG or
it would be or Phoenix One.
Phoenix One, right? And both those teams, I think, are a step ahead of potentially the 5th, 6th place teams, assuming, you know, Stick stays healthy and all that.
That's very true.
And I think that's a little bit of a problem, but the big one to avoid is P1. And I think they have a decent chance otherwise because they've been improving throughout the year. This was not their best weekend overall, but they still showed that they can play late game team fights well sometimes. They can have good early game plans. Chaser has looked a lot better generally. So if they can pull it all together, I think they have a good chance against a lot of the matchups.
And I actually think that almost all these teams in the middle of a pack, it's just a crapshoot. Like, there actually are pretty evenly matched. Dignitas' record down the stretch was very strong. And you're saying, oh, you're pretty scared of P1? Look at their weekend this week. They were a mess. And even CLG, they've had some pretty bad games. A lot of our teams have had some very severe ups and downs. And I mean, if FlyQuest is in there, they've had some pretty bad games. It's like, you know, who is that dominant team that you just can't beat? And I don't think there really is one in the playoffs right now.
Exactly. It makes it very exciting looking forward. But Dignitas, I just have to commend them on the run that they've made, right? The way they turned around their season as it wasn't looking like they might be a playoff team. Here they've done it. They'll be happy to have this series under their belt. We've got more league action coming your way. Counterlogic Gaming and Stixay will be joining them. They hit the Rift next as they go up against Team Envy. Don't go anywhere.